listen to this, because Celtic has just dropped 3 massive stories. We've got former Rangers captain Barry Ferguson left absolutely baffled. We've got Martin O'Neill stunning the dressing room with a brutal moment after a match. And then the biggest update yet on Wilfried Nancy that every Celtic fan needs to hear. Stick with me right to the very end. We have 6 news a day to keep you updated with the mighty Celtic. Hit that subscribe button and be part of it. Mate, let me walk you through that absolute nonsense at Easter Road, because honestly, if you managed to watch that match without shouting at the telly, you deserve a medal. Celtic should have cruised through Hibs without a single drop of sweat. Yet somehow the officials managed to drag the whole thing back into Sucky Hall street-level chaos. And of course, it all landed on poor Liam Scales, who ended up punished for a handball that might as well have been caused by gravity and bad luck, rather than anything remotely deliberate. The moment it happened, you could feel every Celtic fan thinking the same thing. Here we go again. The ball ricochets off his shoulder at the speed of a Glasgow winter gust, travels barely half a yard, and suddenly the referee and VAR are acting like he's swatted it away volleyball style. It was utterly daft. And you know what really seals it? Even Barry Ferguson, the eternal mouthpiece of the blue half of the city, looked completely baffled. When a Rangers man says Celtic were hard done by, mate, you know the decision belongs in the bin. Ferguson even compared it to the Livingston incident, where Rangers somehow walked away without conceding a penalty a couple of weeks back. He called the whole thing absolutely baffling, and for once, I'm agreeing with him. The decisions this season have been so all over the place that even the Azuis are struggling to defend them. That tells you everything. The handball rule is becoming a full-blown circus. Too many buzzwords, too many interpretations, not enough common sense. Andy Walker summed it up perfectly. We're heading straight back into the daft territory we thought Scottish football had left behind. He said the Scales moment reminded him of that ridiculous penalty Celtic got against Kilmarnock, and a decision that never should have stood, and he's right. How can anyone call it a penalty when Scales is half a yard away? The ball comes off another part of his body, and he has less time to react than the Rangers' defense has to produce an excuse after a defeat. The worst part, this is happening at a time when Celtic are actually building momentum again. You could see the composure, the control, the grit, but still, in the middle of a tight match, a daft refereeing moment tries to drag us back into chaos. And yet, even with the officials making things harder, Celtic stood firm. That's the sign of a team with more heart than the entire blue half of Glasgow combined. But tell me this, and I want you to be brutally honest, do you genuinely believe this was just another incompetent decision? Or are these calls stacking up in a way that feels a bit too convenient against Celtic in big moments? What's your take, mate? Hit that subscribe button. Lads, let's G it. Laldy till we hit 1,500 mad Celtic daffs. Let me tell you, this wee story from Luke Mccowan about Martin O'Neill had me absolutely howling, because it sums the man up perfectly. You know how Celtic love a wee lap of honour after a match at Paradise? The fans love it, the atmosphere is bouncing, the whole place feels alive. But the moment O'Neill walked back through the doors, the whole thing took a turn that only he could produce. Mccowan said that after O'Neill's very first game back in charge, the squad did their usual stroll around the pitch soaking up the noise, and O'Neill just stared at them with that look only he can manage, the kind that could silence a room quicker than a Rangers collapse in a title race. Then he hits them with it. Did you win a cup? You can just picture the boys standing there like school kids caught bunking class. He wasn't raging, he wasn't sarcastic, he was just pure O'Neill, brutally honest, cutting and completely correct. His message couldn't have been clearer. Stop acting like the job's done. The next game is coming, get your heads back on. That's the mentality of a man who lived through the glory days under Jock Stein and carried that same mentality into the modern dressing room. He doesn't do showboating, he doesn't do complacency, and he definitely doesn't do drama. unless it's him causing it with his quick wit. Mccowan said O'Neill kept repeating that same message after every win. Beat Feyenoord away, the sort of result that makes the whole blue half of Glasgow disappear into hiding, and the first words out of O'Neill's mouth were, "We've got Sunday to come." That's him in a nutshell. No time to stand and pose. No time to admire yourself. Just get ready to win again. And even though the man has that aura that terrifies anyone who grew up watching him lead Celtic into battles bigger than any storm rolling in over Glasgow, he's still cracking jokes, still taking the edge off the pressure, still making the dressing room feel alive. Mccowan said he's been brilliant to work with, a pleasure, and honestly, you can feel it on the pitch. The team are sharper, hungrier, more switched on, the opposite of what we often see across the city, where laps of honor only happen when the stadium is half empty and the excuses start flowing like rain on sucky Hall Street. And now with his final game coming against Dundee, you can sense the emotion building. The man walked in for a short stint and reminded everyone what standards look like. Not nostalgia, not sentiment, standards. And he did it while making the whole squad laugh, listen, and level up. But here's what I want to know from you, Adin, and be honest with me, mate. After seeing how the team has transformed under him, do you think the club should have pushed harder to keep O'Neill instead of handing the reins straight to Nancy? Hit that subscribe button. Lads, let's G it. Loldy till we hit 1,500 mad Celtic daffs. Celtic is living through one of those proper Glasgow dramas where half the city is convinced we're on the verge of a new era, and the other half is pacing around like it's the sucky Hall Christmas rush. And all of it, every last bit, comes down to this managerial handover that feels less like a simple transition and more like a tug of war between momentum and long-term planning. Stephen McGowan's take on it hits right where the pulse of the support actually is, because, let's be honest, nobody expected Martin O'Neill to walk in at 73 and turn this squad into a side playing with the swagger of a team that knows it belongs on the European stage. 6 wins from 7, a European victory in Feyenoord, and suddenly folk are asking the question nobody at the boardroom table wanted to hear: if it's not broken, why are they fixing it? McCowan points out what any Celtic fan with half an eye open can see. The board is committed to Wilfried Nancy, and they want a fresh philosophy, a new spark, all those buzzwords you hear when directors start dreaming big. But how do you ignore the fact that O'Neill hasn't just steadied the ship? He's turned the thing into a cruise liner, bulldozing its way through the league, while the other lot across the city are still arguing over what is or isn't a handball every second week. And the more the paperwork drags on, the more nervous drags folk get about another Eddie Howe-style circus rolling into town. McCowan says it's just visas and admin. But in Glasgow, we've seen enough managerial sagas to know that nothing is signed until it's signed, and even then, you keep one eye open. What really stirs the pot is the timing. You can feel the supporters torn between the lift O'Neill has brought and the long-term project Nancy represents. The journalist even admits O'Neill's CV blows Nancy's out the water, but he's also 73, and the club doesn't want to be scrambling every season for short-term patches. Yet here we are in a title race that's tighter than anyone expected, a Europa League run still alive, and a League Cup final on the horizon. And Nancy, if he does walk through those doors this week, gets thrown straight into the deep end with matches that could shape not just the rest of the season, but the atmosphere around his entire tenure. What O'Neill has done is remind everyone of the standard, the feel, the hunger that should come with wearing that Celtic badge. Performances with clarity and bite. A squad reborn, and that's exactly why this transition feels so emotionally loaded. Nancy is arriving not to rescue a failing team, but to take over one that's suddenly flying again. That's a blessing, but a heavy bit of weight on the shoulders too, because the first sign of a wobble, and fine, well, the blue side of the city will be screaming that Celtic should have stuck with the old hero while pretending they're not still greeting about every VAR call that goes against them. So here's the question I'm throwing straight to you, the Celtic fan watching this right now. Should the board have the bottle to keep O'Neill until the summer, or is bringing Nancy in immediately the only way to move the club forward without slipping behind in the long-term race? Hit that subscribe button. Lads, let's G-I-T loudly till we hit 1,500 mad Celtic daffs.